anointed as the new Premier League champions.
Day of celebration.
Day of celebration at Anfield, apart from a small little tiny segment of the stadium, which I'm led to believe actually were a lot of Liverpool fans in that section.
So even smaller than you would have thought.
So even smaller than usual. They're saying apparently it was as many as over half the away end was Liverpool fans. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've been told. And if that's true, first of all, I want to say each and every Spurs fan that sold their ticket to Liverpool fans are an absolute disgrace. More of a disgrace than the team that were on the pitch yesterday. How can you be selling your tickets to Liverpool fans in an away end? That is just disgraceful. Shocking, to be honest.
Yeah. And it just goes to show kind of the state of our club as well, that fans are willing to do that. And, you know, first of all, they're stopping Tottenham fans maybe who've never been to an away game or struggled to get away tickets from going. Not that yesterday was something I would have been desperate to have been at, but I think the fact that they're willing to give up the tickets to fans in the home end goes to show kind of where the fans' heads are at the moment. They're not even bothered about having fellow Tottenham fans in the away end with them supporting the team. They'd rather get the money and give it to home fans looking to celebrate a potential league challenge, because they think that the money is more valuable than having Tottenham fans supporting the club in the away end, which is shocking and disappointing, and just goes to show kind of where the head of a lot of the fan base is at the moment.
Yeah. But look, aside from that, it was a really, really hard day yesterday. Just like, I was struggling so badly during the watch along yesterday. Like, I just wanted the game to end after about 25 minutes, after we went 2-1 down. And just, you know, the game started well. You know, the first 10 minutes, we came out of the traps pretty fast. I thought Maddison was playing well. Solanke was working really hard up top. We got that goal. We were looking dangerous from set pieces as well. Great header, by the way, from Dom Solanke about 12 minutes in. And then after that, it just went to absolute shit. And it's kind of expected, isn't it? Because on a day like you saw the scenes outside the stadium, thousands and thousands of Liverpool fans outside the ground watching the game as well, celebrating as each goal went in. You know, on days like that, it usually is inevitable that Spurs are going to lose, but there's a manner in which to lose in, and the manner in which we lost yesterday was truly disgraceful by any stretch of the imagination from everyone involved. But look, it was nice to see the team come out a bit fast and take the lead, but that's pretty much where it ended.
Glorious 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What a 10 minutes at Anfield. Make a DVD out of those 10 minutes. But look, once you saw the lineup and once you saw kind of how we were approaching the game, make even more changes from the game against Forest. That was already a much changed team. Knowing we got a massive game on Thursday, hearing Maddison's comments after the game as well, I think it tells a story about where the squad's head's at, where the manager's head's at when coming into this game. Before the game, we said we expect many, many changes. I think it was probably even more changes than expected because we had Gray in midfield, which we probably didn't expect. And I think when you take all that to consideration, I think we're all expecting a fairly heavy defeat going. Even though Liverpool aren't in the best of form performance-wise and they're not playing at their best, we know that this is going to be a buoyant atmosphere because they had 1 point to basically to lift the titles at home. And it was always going to be a very, very difficult day. Doesn't make it any easier watching it. You still feel that pain. Even though we expected what we saw yesterday, it still was painful watching it and watching 90 minutes of much of it utter dross and lack of passion, fight, you know, lack of kind of pride for the badge, you know, allowing some of the things to happen, like the second and third goals, the manner in which we conceded them, the manner in which we were pulled apart in that second half with minimal fuss, and it was basically a procession for Liverpool yesterday. And it felt like they were playing a side. They were just willing participants who weren't basically going to make it difficult for them to win that title, and that's hard to take and it's hard to watch, but. If you would have told me before the game this game was going to finish 5-1 and we were going to be battered, I wouldn't have been surprised, and that's what happened.
No, I wouldn't have been surprised either, and I think we both. I don't think you would have found a Spurs fan that didn't expect a heavy defeat going into this, or at least defeat. But like you said, it's all about the manner in which Spurs conducted themselves on the pitch yesterday, and it's nothing short of disgraceful. I mean, it came to a state where Mo Salah's literally taking selfies during a game with the Liverpool fans. I mean, how embarrassing can it get? And the facial expressions that Mo Salah was making when he's scoring, he's like, he couldn't believe how easy it was. Like, I've never actually been so embarrassed watching Spurs before, and I've seen some embarrassing performances in my time and embarrassing results. And yeah, you could say this is 5-1 against the champions elect and all that kind of stuff, which is all true. But these kind of moments are the moments that stick with you.
Yeah. Well, look, let's hope it doesn't stick with us for too long, because we've got a big game on Thursday. And look, we do have to put it at the back of our minds, and we do. It's a massive game, one of the biggest games we've had in a long time. So I think it is important we try and kind of get over it quickly. But I agree, it's also important that that there's acknowledgement. I mean, which I haven't heard too much acknowledgement, I guess, from players or the manager after this game about how bad that was, about how. Like, there's got to be some sort of fundamentals about a performance. And yeah, look, to be fair, going into the game, going to Anfield with a midfield of Gray, Bergvall, Maddison, having a backline of Davis, Danso in there as well, like at centre back, it is a recipe for disaster. Let's be honest, it's never going to be easy with going into it with that kind of experience and expecting to get a result, but. No closing down for shots.
Like, I mean,
things
the only
like that,
player you
the
mentioned there is really Archie Gray. Everyone else should be, good enough and old enough and, to manage a situation like that. I mean, Bergvall, we've been saying week in, week out, he's been doing it. He's the youngest player apart from Archie Gray. Apart from Gray, Danso, Davis, Doggy, Spence, Maddison, all should be able to handle something like that. And all should be showing better than themselves than they did.
Yeah, but you're going to Anfield against basically their best 11, and we're expecting that midfield to handle it. It was never going to happen. They were never going to be able to handle it.
It's not about handling it. It's about showing some effort and desire. That's the worry here. It's not exactly about being battered. That's not the worry here. The worry here is how much of a lack of fight there was from the players and how basically they just didn't try on the pitch. That's what it looked like. They just looked like they weren't trying and were just like, look, we've come here to get battered and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Which obviously didn't happen in the first 10 minutes, but as soon as we conceded, it was like, all right, the tide's turned, essentially. That's it, basically. As soon as we conceded that goal, it was almost like inevitable what was going to happen. And obviously they had a goal ruled out from offside, and then they went on to very quickly take charge of that game. And it was they had just an air of inevitability about it. And it was hard to watch, very, very much hard to watch. And it was like really awful viewing for any Tottenham fan watching that game, like sitting here, and especially when you've fans who have travelled from London to all that way, paid money. I know some fans have given up their tickets, but the fans who did travel up to watch that game and paid a lot of money to go see that, to be served that, is disgusting, really. And there should be some acknowledgement from the Tottenham side that what we saw on that pitch, regardless of the result, is not good enough.
So what would you like to see happen? What should have happened after?
There should have been some acknowledgement from the players and the manager. From the comments that I've seen, I haven't seen any sort of acknowledgement that that basically what happened on that pitch wasn't good enough. It was like, oh yeah, it was disappointing. We had a good start and then we let the game get away with us. Maddison saying, yeah, we have to put this game in the back of our minds. We've got a big game Thursday. Like, it's almost like they want to forget about it immediately. And that, look, I understand it, because in a way that, we do need to put it at the back of our minds, but maybe say that the next day, like, this has just happened, like that defeat, that performance had just happened, and there should be acknowledgement that this is not what we basically represent, and this is not how this is not acceptable to be putting out performances like that. And there was no acknowledgement of that, and that for me is very disappointing.
We need to talk about Vicario, man, because he seems to be having stinkers week in, week out in the Premier League now, and it's been happening for a couple of weeks. And I don't know what's going on with him. We seem to be asking this question, what is going on with Vicario, for the past couple of weeks. And yesterday, the amount of times he was just playing it back to Liverpool, like, it happened so many times, particularly in that second half. I mean, his distribution out of the back yesterday was nothing short of embarrassing. I thought he was flapping from a few crosses as well. There was a couple that he caught, but I mean, I'm not going to put any fault on him in probably any of the goals that went in, because I thought, they were all good strikes and clinical finishes. But it's his playing out the back and his distribution that just frightened the hell out of me. And it was just like, how can you be so bad?
Yeah, I have to rewatch a lot of his mistakes because he's definitely given the ball away way too much, and definitely for some reason he has this propensity to get the ball on his left foot before passing it when he's right-footed, and clearly his passing isn't as good when he's on his left foot. And I don't know why he keeps. Maybe it's the opposition forcing him onto his left foot. Maybe they've identified a weakness and basically force him onto his left foot and then force him to pass out the back, but he seems to want to do these passes into midfield on his left foot, and we're getting caught time and time again. Now, is it that the players in midfield are not showing for the ball and they're not fighting to win it when they should be? Or is it just the passes are so bad it's constantly giving the ball away and constantly putting us back under pressure? I think it's probably a bit of both, but from what I remember, definitely the accuracy of his passes leaves a lot to be desired. And now he's becoming a bit of a joke with especially home fans. They're starting to make fun of him. They're starting to put pressure on him. They're starting to basically weighing, when they go, "Way!" every time he kicks the ball.
At Wolves, it was terrible.
Yeah, Wolves, it was bad. Sarcastic jeers. That's the word I'm looking for. They're basically sarcastically jeering him now. And that's obviously not great for his confidence at all. And yeah, ever since that Chelsea game, really, the Premier League performances, especially away from home, have been really, really bad. Really bad. Well, I guess at home as well against Forest, it was also very bad. So I don't know what is going on with him. I don't know why his confidence has really dipped. Definitely, it seems like a confidence thing. But he's got no worries about that second or third goal it was. Absolutely giving pelters to defence, which is fair enough because they deserve it for someone they're defending. But he's not taking any responsibility, I guess, from some of the awful mistakes he's making. And definitely in recent weeks, his performances have dipped alarmingly, it's fair to say, in the Premier League. Look, in the Europa League, it's still pretty decent, but in the Premier League, it's dipped massively. And it's hard to put your finger on why exactly it's happened, but it's just like that Chelsea game, he was like a bit shaky, and all of a sudden, he's now making mistakes week in, week out, and he's looking worse and worse.
And he's one of the ones that's supposed to have that kind of mentality, and one of the leaders in the dressing room, and he's the one that's supposed to be keeping up these kind of sort of standards. Well, they all should be, but I mean, he should be one of the ones leading that. And it seems to be getting worse and worse every week with Vicario. And you can't even drop. You can drop him for the Premier League games, but we just got to hope and pray this doesn't creep into the Europa League displays. Because if that happens against Bodo or something, then we're pretty much on a hiding to nothing.
Well, all we can say is in the Europa League it hasn't happened yet. So I don't think we're going to drop him for those games. But
look, he's in the Europa League against Frankfurt. We were just going long every time, and it wasn't really a worry. But if we do start playing out the back and he does start showing these traits, then it's going to be,
Well, in the first game we won.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe I just hope Bodo don't put him under too much pressure, but for sure that's something that, look, to be honest, it's something that I've noticed, not this bad, but he's never been an elite ball out the back kind of goalkeeper. He's been decent, especially when he first came. He seemed a lot more comfortable on the ball than Lloris, but I very quickly saw that this guy isn't up there with the best keepers when it comes to playing out from the back.
Isn't that what we wanted from a keeper, though? Isn't that what one of the remits were for bringing in a keeper, someone that is good with their feet?
Which is why Raya was our first choice, but we didn't pay the money.
So I don't understand, with the recruitment team. First of all, I've liked Vicario since he's come in. I think, he's got a bit about him. I like his shot stopping. And when he first came back from injury, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. But going back to the recruitment of Vicario, if Raya is your number one choice, and the one kind of the best USP he's got is kind of his ball playing ability with his feet. Obviously, he's got other attributes as well that are very good, but that's the one thing we probably looked at and being like, look, this is the keeper for us in terms of the way we want to play. Then how do you go from Raya to Vicario? I just don't understand it.
I never saw Vicario one of his biggest strengths in playing out the back. Even when I was looking at his time at Empoli, they weren't really that kind of team, so he didn't have to do that often. He wasn't really a massive passer. Now, he was an upgrade on Lloris when it comes to passing out the back, and I still think that, and I still think he's probably better than a few keepers in the league, but it's not his biggest. It's not a strength of his. I would say it's not something that I look at and think that he's good at that. I think if you ask him to play it simple and you ask him to look, sometimes he can have a good clip to the fullback and stuff like that. But when you put him under pressure and you ask him to use that ability on the ball, and when the pressure's on and players are being marked and he has to be super accurate, he's clearly struggling right now with that. And on top of that, there are times now even worse where he's looking incredibly shaky. He's giving the ball away. He had that moment against Wolves where he gave it straight to Larson right in front of the goal. Against Bournemouth, he had a couple of moments. And yesterday, when he got the ball at his feet, that was that one time he was forced to play outplay for a throw because he had no options. I think it's a mix between some players are hiding when we're being pressed really high and aggressively, and players need to show for the ball to show confidence of playing this way. Some players are hiding in those moments and basically hiding behind the players pressing them, basically saying, I don't want the ball. That's their fault as well. But as well, Vicario, his passing has been very haphazard, and it's shown basically a clumsiness to it, which is not good enough at this level. Now, I wouldn't say it's been this bad always. I think it's definitely been worse recently than it has been beforehand. But for one reason or another, we can't seem to solve this issue in recent weeks of how he can stop making these kind of mistakes, and that's a big worry for sure.
Yeah. Archie Gray, let's talk about him, because in my opinion, obviously in hindsight, putting Archie Gray in the six was a massive mistake yesterday against a rampant Liverpool side and rampant Liverpool midfield, and he was clearly overawed by the physicality of their midfield. A few of the goals, were down to him, and I just don't understand the decision to not play Basuma in that position and play Archie and not play Archie Gray maybe in the 8 or even at like a right back or something. Albeit if he did play right back, he probably would have been the same kind of scenario. But yeah, second time he's playing in a midfield as a 6 is at Anfield in their title-winning game. I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, aren't you the one that said you never want to see Basuma in a Spurs shirt ever again?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
When?
After his line, now you said, have you lost trust in Basuma? You never want to see him play?
I have lost trust in Basuma, but at least he has a bit more physicality about him, and he's like a man. You know what I mean? Archie Gray's a little boy, making his name in the game, and you're sending him out there to the Wolves pretty much.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I think it was clearly too much for him, which I don't understand. Like Ange said it after the game, he's like, we put 2 young centre midfielders in the midfield and it proved too much for them. Well, you decided to do that. Like he knew what was probably going to be the outcome. Obviously, the excuse would be, we've got Thursday and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to...
But Thursday's not an excuse when Basuma's sitting there.
No, I mean... I guess the argument would be it's a learning curve for him, and a player's got to go through this kind of thing to improve as a player. I guess, especially in that position, that'd be the argument. I probably would have played Basuma. Obviously, we predicted Basuma would have started in this kind of game. I don't see the result massively changing based on that decision, but maybe Archie Gray's confidence doesn't take a massive hit, especially the fact that he got hauled off at half time as well. Didn't help. It was quite telling, I feel, that we took Archie Gray off, but we didn't bring Basuma on, did we? At half time, we brought on Sarr and Kulusevski, and we moved Bergvall to the 6 in that second half. So I don't know if if you're not going to play Basuma at that point, I don't know why he was even in the squad. But I guess he said Bentancur, they're just managing him, for whatever reason. He's played a lot recently, so they didn't want to play him. But I guess from a point of view of Basuma. Basically, if you're going to basically throw someone to the walls, it might as well be Basuma and not Gray. I think that's fair enough, and I think I probably would have done that myself. But Gray has to go through these. He has to go through these periods if he's going to play in that position long term in the Premier League, and these are the learning curves he's going to have to go through. And it's not nice to see, but he's going to have to basically start at Anfield at some point maybe not this element, but at some point. I would like to see it done in a more settled team after he's had a few more games in that position, 100%. So I don't like the fact that he did it yesterday, to be honest. I think it was a bad decision, and the fact that he got hauled off at half-time probably shows that. He probably should have started Basuma. But I guess going into the game, the argument would be like, Gray's got to learn that position. And in this kind of scenario where we're resting players and we've got to play Thursday, maybe this is a time to try and get him learning in that position, especially in this kind of game. It'll be difficult for him, but then that's the kind of start of where you start to learn things in these kind of performances. And I think, we've seen players go through similar things this season and then they improve. And maybe Gray's going to be playing a lot more in the midfield. If Gray is going to be playing a lot more midfield between now and the end of the season in the Premier League, I don't have as much of an issue with it. If it's going to be he played in this game and now he's out the team, then I have a massive issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, he should play. I mean, why not play him in the next 4 Premier League games in midfield? It'll be good to see if he can develop any sort of kind of warrant to stay there for next season. You've got West Ham away, you've got Palace at home, Villa away, and Brighton at home. I have no problem with him playing in midfield in those kind of games. But this game, you just knew that this Liverpool midfield were just going to be so overly aggressive, and basically it didn't matter who we had in midfield, they were probably going to dominate. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So Archie Gray was on a complete hiding for nothing being in that team yesterday.
Yeah, and the fact he got hauled off at half-time shows that he was out of his depth, really. I think that's the proper term for it. He was completely out of his depth yesterday. You could see it for that second goal. The way that he had 2 or 3 yards on Gravenberch and he still couldn't get to the ball before him because Gravenberch just had that physical edge on him. And that was the telling moment in the game to show that Gray just can't compete right now, especially against that level of opposition, who are probably the best in the league right now, or who are the best in the league, obviously, especially in midfield. Gravenberch's been brilliant this season. Gray just couldn't compete. So I didn't like watching it. I wouldn't have. I don't think we didn't predict him to start in that position. I don't think it was probably not fair of him to start in that position, I would say as well. But if it's going to lead to, if Ange is going to say he played in that game leading to him getting a run of Premier League games, and that was basically him throwing him in there to get him to basically saying this is going to be the hardest challenge you have, and if you can not get through it, but if you can basically play in that kind of game, then it's only not going to get as tough as that going forward, so it'll be a good setup for it. Then I can maybe understand it a bit more. But if we're going to sit here in the future Premier League games and he's not going to play, then I think you've just basically hung him up to dry for no reason, and I hate that. Absolutely hate that.
Yeah, but look, it was just such a hard watch yesterday. I don't think any player on that pitch for Spurs, substitutes or starters or manager, come out with anything to go on, anything positive, because I think from 1 to 11 every player was absolutely shocking, and I saw players, particularly in that second half, or for pretty much an hour of it, just give up, just completely give up on the pitch. And you can't have that. You've got to have a bit of pride about you playing for that shirt, wearing the badge of Tottenham Hotspur, with so many fans relying on you, fans travelling up and down the country week in, week out, and you just give up on the pitch. And we've seen it so many times over the years under different managers, and it just gets harder and harder to take every single time you watch it. And I mean, the only one I felt that didn't give up was Lucas Bergvall. Bergvall in the second half actually was starting to grow into the game, and he was actually putting in so much effort trying to drive the team forward. And how many times have we said it? In these games that we keep losing, Lucas Bergvall is the only one trying to get the ball moving and trying to drive the team up the pitch. A 19-year-old kid. It's madness.
He hasn't been infected for long enough with the Spurs mentality. Yeah. That's the problem. Wait till next season. But yeah, I absolutely agree. It was like they were just waiting for Thursday, essentially, in that second half, and they just wanted that game to be over with as little minimum damage as possible. And they were just waiting to basically concede. They were just, whenever they got the ball, they were just lumping it long. They had no kind of confidence or ability to try and play any sort of football. It was like they just couldn't be bothered to play football, because that takes effort, that takes desire, that takes showing for the ball, that takes bravery, and they just basically had no interest in any of those traits. It was like, we're going to get the ball, we're just going to lump it long, I'm going to see if Solanke can hang on to it, and we're just going to wait for the ball to come back to us. And when we get it back, we're just going to lump it long again, because they're pressing us. I can't be bothered to basically shield the ball, or I can't be bothered to protect the ball, or I can't bother to show for the ball, I can't bother to make runs, I can't bother to do anything. I'm just going to get the ball and lump it long and just hope for the best and hope we don't concede 7 or 8. And we're lucky we didn't yesterday.
Yeah, we really are lucky. But look, that is it. That's all we're going to say on the matter. Well, not all we're going to say because we've got player ratings now. So let's see.
There's only so many times we could say how bad it. You know what I mean? It's like it was so bad yesterday. It was hard to watch, but it's like I don't know what more we can analyze from that. We can take from that. We can't like. It was a shocking game. We were waiting for Thursday, but I think us fans are waiting for Thursday as well. You know what I mean? Before the game, you said there should not be one player playing who is going to start on Thursday.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the narrative among the fan base as well. So it's hard to expect anything different.
Yeah, but these guys are getting paid, 50k plus a week to play for Tottenham Hotspur. As much as I didn't want to see anyone playing yesterday that I want to see playing on Thursday, the players on the pitch still need to put in some effort.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That should be the bare minimum. Just put in a bit of effort. Is that all so much to ask?
Shouldn't be.
You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous.